Several years ago, I found this catalyst up in the mountains looking for gold and silver. This rhyolite or ash material, and it gives off a scalar energy. It has an effect on water. It can structure the molecules of water. Can crack hydrocarbon chains, make fuel more combustible. It affects the human consciousness. I believe it's raised my frequency or consciousness, possibly to connect to the Akashic records, and led me to this place here in the Superstition Mountains, right to the spot where it's located at, up on that side of the mountain, up next to the, straight ahead. If you look at the video there, straight ahead, the peak up there to the left side is where there's another formation of this catalyst that I believe the ancient Mesoamericans thought was Quetzalcoatl. And so this place here has got a lot more to offer than that, actually, and it's a wonderful place. I found other superglyphs, like here's the plumed serpent. The mountaintop here, you can see the kind of a mouth and the serpent curving to the right there, and there's like a head in the middle, like a Quetzalcoatl is a serpent with a head in this mouth. This is Hathor. Her face, just above the wording of Hathor, is right there, that odd looking shape that you see on the temples. Here's Anubis, and you can see the mouth is a short mouth, not like most animals have a jaw line all the way, jaw point all the way to the back. This has just got a little bit, just like depicted in the ancient Egyptian images. Here's Set. You see the ears above in the back, behind the head, like on the images shown. Here's Amun-Ra. It's the ram head. It's leaning on its side. I've taken several drone videos of that there, up closer to it. You got to be back away from it and above it to see this stuff. Here's the Hathor formation out there to the distance there. Here's none other than Thoth, the god of wisdom and engineering, and it doesn't look like he's a real person, does it? I mean, he's really been humanized and made real, but he's a slide block. Here's the Wasp Scepter, and this is a big, looks like an alien head going up to the top there. It goes left and right is the head, and then the body comes down to the hook, which is part of the Quetzalcoatl serpent and mouth. But that's the Wasp Scepter, and you have to be a mile up to see that. How did people see that thousands of years ago? How did they see these images? Some you can see from a high, get onto a hill next to it and see them. But the Wasp Scepter and the plumed serpent, or the Apis bulba, you can't see those when you're standing on them. You have to be above to see that stuff. So how did ancient people find these images from these mountains here? And then later they become landmarks to mark this sacred spot here, the primordial mound with this energy. But it also is the so how do people see these images? Do they have flying machines? Do they have balloons? Would they have surveyed the lower areas and come up with these images from doing that? I used to survey. I don't think so. It would be very difficult to do that. I can see them from satellite imagery. We have Google Earth, and that's how I find them. And use a drone. I have a drone that I can fly up above these and make these things out. But people thousands of years ago didn't, or did they? Were there Nowadays all the UFO talk has a lot of people believing now that there are extraterrestrials out there. What they are is hard to say. Did they give us this kind of knowledge to locate ancient people, to locate all this stuff? Mathematics. Here's the layout of the sacred area, the Valley of the Gods there, and this matches the Orion pattern, Orion constellation pattern. Did someone show us that? Or are we not giving humans enough credit? And once they raised their consciousness, finding this Philosopher's Stone, they were able to siphon this out and make a story. Ancient people definitely worked on raising their consciousness. It's all over the place if you know what you're looking at. The ancient Egyptians had stone temples talking about how to raise your consciousness, how you should do that. I believe the Egyptologists have it wrong and talk about how Egyptians were interested in the afterlife so much that they built all these pyramids for temples or for tombs and these big stone temples to commemorate going to the afterlife for their pharaohs. I just don't believe it. I believe they were talking about raising your consciousness, being reborn in this world, and raising your consciousness to commune with God or source, or however you like to say it, to connect into the Akashic records. And that's true. That's the golden age. When people say this is the golden age, that was the golden age when you raised your consciousness. The Egyptians built stone temples. The Coptic Christians talked about it. The Essenes documented on papyrus and cuneiform. The Gnostic Christians talked about it to where they were kind of wiped out by the Roman Catholic Christians. Then society turned into the Dark Ages. So then the secret societies had to be out, otherwise you'd be wiped out. Like the Knights Templars, I believe, had kept secret what the secret was and what they were really doing. They were the company of Jesus, but they were also practicing what Jesus taught. Some say after Jesus had risen from the dead. That's what the Gnostics teach. The Masons, after that, the Rosicrucians, a lot of secret societies through time are also holding that history and that teaching. And the reason I'm going through all this is because the consciousness is a real thing, and people think of consciousness says you're awake. Actually, consciousness can be compared to the soul, and it's just your energy source as your consciousness, and your frequency is your consciousness. So I recently saw a documentary where a PhD that was into UFOs and UFO sightings, and he's a smart man, really convincing when he talks about that. He believes the UFOs we see, there's UFOs come in different shapes and sizes. And sometimes they're just little balls of light or fuzzy images, and they shapeshift and do all kinds of weird things. So nobody can really figure out what they are because they just defy all the laws of physics that we understand today. It just does not make sense. But this PhD talks about how they're interdimensional travelers, where they go with and they travel with consciousness. And they're millions of years ahead of us on Earth here, and some are billions of years ahead. And so these other civilizations or beings have perfected raising their consciousness to the point where they can travel and come in and out of their dimension into ours. And sometimes when he says when those UFO images shape shift, sometimes they're in their dimension and then they're kind of poking their head through, so to speak, into ours, and we see them, and they can come in and out. So that's pretty wild to think of that, but that might be an explanation. And they say, this doctor says they get a group of people together, they can call UFOs to show themselves. So what is that the explanation why ancient people came up with these gods, the Wasp Scepter, all these superglyphs? They had ET helped in seeing these things, or they tapped in, raised their consciousness and got into the Akashic records where ETs can contact them, or telepathically, or they've seen the Akashic, in the realm of consciousness, time has no meaning. The Akashic records, there's no time involved. And maybe once they were a shaman thousands of years ago, raised his consciousness with this Philosopher's Stone and saw the images that I'm putting on out into the universe, as if it was all happening at the same time. Everything happens at the same time, they say. So did somebody see my images and come up with these images that they saw, and eventually they become legends and then religions, and that's what we see today. But it's pretty wonderful. So I've never seen UFOs out here. When the first night I camped out under the stars, the first night I made it up to the top where I wanted to go, I was on that catalyst. I didn't realize at that time. It was about a year later before I figured out there was a catalyst there. But I camped on it the first night. I went right to it. Out of all these rugged mountains, there's thousands of square miles in superstition wilderness, I went to the right spot the first time. That's where I wanted to go from day one. Was I led there through the Akashic records as some source leading me to that point? Why does it need to come out now? Is consciousness the next evolution of man to where we evolve into the next being type? Some say that are into the UFO and the extraterrestrial life, they are waiting for us to evolve. We either evolve past the atomic bomb and destroy us and go on and live for millions of years, or we destroy ourselves because we can't handle it. And society right now is going in the wrong direction. Society is going in the wrong direction. Every time this sort of leadership takes control, millions of people die, and it's just not the best direction. We may exterminate ourselves before it's over.